Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, Adi.
Hey, B. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited. Super
I know
excited.
we're not the only ones here. I mean, I have my three ladies behind me, Miss Cynthia Nixon, SJP, and Kristen Davis, but we actually have some guests. But first, just for our viewers, welcome to Perspectives. This is our fifth episode, and we're going to be discussing the And Just Like That series season finale. So, but first, we want to introduce our guests. Audie, do you want to introduce our first guest?
Yes, we have the incomparable Nash G. Nashana Gates. Hello, hello, hello. How
Hello.
are you? You want to say hello to our viewers? Tell them a little bit about yourself, Nash?
Hi, hello, hello, hello. Thank you guys so much for having me, Audie and Brandon. I'm Nash. I'm the host of the Nash Tack podcast. You can find me at thenashtack.com if you want to venture over there at some point. Not now. Don't do it now. Listen to this. But Brandon, I have a question for you. If those three ladies are there, does this make you Kim Cattrall?
Oh,
I mean, I love that. And honestly, we needed somebody for Kim Cattrall this
you could
season.
have filled that fourth seat. They rotated it a couple of times. Rotated it a couple of times. Anyway, yeah.
But I also just wanted to make a comment. I guess today I'm sporting a Che haircut. So I
Oh my
wanted
God.
to be
I
the
don't mean to
fourth
roll my
Che
eyes, but
today.
yeah.
But for our other guest viewers, we are also with the very, very talented and superb Amani Dorn. Hello, Amani.
Hello from Atlanta.
Yes, would you like to introduce yourself? Give a little spiel about?
Yeah, I do not personally have my own podcast. I'm a dialect coach. So I spend a lot of time on Zoom. So yeah, that's me. I'm from Austin, where Brandon and I are from. Yeah.
Very cool. Well,
Mhm.
and I met Nash and Audie from college. That's how we got to know each other at SFA. Audie is from Houston, and Nash, you were originally from the
Garland,
DFW, Dallas
Texas.
Fort Worth, Garland, correct?
And now I'm in Austin, thankfully. Only place to be in Texas.
Hey, come on now.
Oh, and Houston. I do love H-Town.
we all have a soft spot, hopefully, for Houston. But so glad that we're all connected here to talk about this very interesting show. So for our viewers, Audie and I have created a cultural and entertainment podcast called Perspectives. And for the first 5 episodes, we did a recap of the show. And today we're going to be discussing the season finale. So let's get into it. This first half, we're just going to talk about how did you feel about it before we get any spoilers. So I'm going to start off with Nash. Nash, how did you feel about the season finale?
So the season finale as a whole for me, if I had to rank it on a scale of 1 to 10, it was about an 8. I feel like we were really getting somewhere in the series and it was really starting to pick up for me, and the finale just didn't pack the punch I really wanted it to, but I did not hate it. It was not terrible watching by any means, but overall it was good, but I wish there was a little bit more.
What about you, Amani? How did you feel about it?
I totally agree with Nash. I thought the whole arc of the season, with some strange things, I think it ended, pretty appropriately.
Okay, we got appropriate. We felt good about it. What about you, Audie? How did you feel about it?
So it definitely was an improvement from previous episodes. Rewatching it today, there's a lot of stuff that they just dropped the ball on, and that bothered me more today than it did the first time I watched it. And my perspective on it is that they ended it with a bow on it just in the event that we don't get a season 2. That's the vibe I got from it because
Mhm.
everything ended very, very
Mm.
happy, which I was a
Me
little bit
too.
expecting. Yeah, very neat, very clean, very like, let's put a pretty pink bow on it. When in reality, there was a lot of plot holes that I didn't realize until today. So overall, I thought it was an improvement from the show itself, but eh, I'd probably give it like a 7.
I it's so interesting to hear you say that because I also rewatched it today too. And the journey that I've had with this show is Audie and I have had some very interesting, but we've both have had very distinct perspectives.
Mhm.
And I feel like at times I was trying to root for the show. And when I first saw the season finale, I still think I had some of that glimmer of hope for the show. But when I rewatched it today, I did not enjoy the season finale. I did not. I was a little frustrated with it. And when I rewatched it and kind of took away some of those rose quartz glasses and kind of was like, okay, something that we've been discussing throughout the show is that it feels like I'm supposed to acknowledge, but it never really acknowledged to me that we were in some bizarro alternate universe that isn't really Sex in the City, but it's its own thing. And these women are not living really in a post-pandemic world. And they kept building that up. And then I rewatched the season finale and I just felt like not even like someone deflated a balloon, but not even in a funny way that was like enough like a really funny fart sound. It just was really kind of like it just kind of fluttered away from me towards the end because I think the biggest problem I had was why is the last image watching Carrie kiss a guy? I don't understand. I know that that's kind of what they've been building. She's gonna find love and whatnot, but the scene that just got us to there and built it up, it felt like a series of events, but not an actual forward emotion that made me felt like it was earned. And I was a little sad by it because I saw the documentary before I rewatched it today. And the documentary actually I wish that was the season finale. I preferred that almost to the actual show because to me I feel like at some point I just didn't feel like they were actually telling us a story. They kind of just were wearing the costumes and the characters as props and they overthought it too much to the point that I didn't feel like I felt the characters. So for me, it didn't work out. I kind of would give it a 5 out of 10. And that's just being, at least there was some really cool costuming and some interesting imagery that I enjoyed. But for the most part, I'm surprised because there were other things during this season that I actually enjoyed, but yeah, didn't enjoy it.
See, and watching the doc for me tainted my rewatch. I wish I hadn't watched the doc because it made me really dislike SJP like a lot now. And she's got this self entitlement that to the character. Her and Michael Patrick King have like birthed this. They called themselves parents to Carrie, like they treat it like. And I'm just like, that's really. It's like she can't differentiate where SJP begins and Carrie ends. I don't know if I'm saying that properly, but it just really I regret watching it because it really tainted my entire view of the whole series now. I can't unsee it. I can't separate it. And she's so she it's like she thinks she is Carrie and it's almost just a little bit like it's just a little ridiculous. Everything down from like the props, the costumes, this nobody can do their job without her looking at it or blah, blah, blah. And it just, yeah, it made me think completely differently of her. Even though I still do think she is good at the role, something about it, it's just, it's different now for me.
Mm.
Yeah, I
Like to
agree.
have seen that much hands-on Carrie action for the Carrie Diaries. It's like if you cared this much about the character, you gave nothing to that entire series. Like you birthed it, you love it so much, but there was a whole other thing, but it didn't star her and she didn't get to pick the outfits and whatever. So she just kind of left it be. It I'm with you. It just feels like was this series necessary or was it just more like SGP was bored? And
See, and
so
that's kind of how I feel about it now. Her and Michael Patrick King. And if you read, which Nash and I discussed, and Amani Brandon, I don't know if you both saw, but Candace Bushnell came out and was like, this series is completely has nothing to do with like my character, or which she has said that even about the original series, but in particular, she seems a little disturbed by the direction that, and just like that, has taken her creation, which is unfortunate.
I did not see that. Did you see that at all or hear about that, Amani?
I did not.
No. See, the last thing I heard about Candace Bushnell was that she was doing a play off Broadway, and that the play, unfortunately, because of COVID and the Omicron variant and everything, it kind of forced the show to close early. But it did seem, the only thing I heard is that she no longer thinks Carrie is in at all even the thing she created. It is so far morphed into this SJP, almost kind of what feels like, to be quite honest, SJP version of the Joker. You all remember the movie Joker that Joaquin Phoenix did, where you were just like, yo, dude, I don't know how far you like drank the sauce. That's what it felt like this time watching it at a certain point. And I didn't want to say that because honestly, I would not have said that until I watched this episode today and I said, who is this for? This isn't for me. This isn't for the viewers. This is also clearly not for the people of color that you have forced into the show, because I just don't feel like you gave any of them anything at the end of the season finale.
In the finale, I was like, what the fuck? I mean, I was just, no, like none of it. LTW had like a 2-second little like pep talk to Charlotte, which I was like, come on. I wanted more. We did not get enough of her or Nia. Yeah, anyway, we'll get into that. I'm sorry. Anyway.
No, well, let's do it. Let's get our spoiler alert out of the way. We're going to go into it. Let's start talking these characters.
Yes, viewers, if you have not watched the season finale, we're about to spoil all of it. So tune out now and come back. But that's
or if you don't want to watch the show and you just want to hear us gab about it, that is totally fine, because I'm not going to say it's not worth it to watch the show, but this might be more fun to hear us talk a little bit about some of the hilarity that is. So,
and maybe it'll make it better.
I mean, honestly, I think the most frustrating thing to me was the people of color. So frustrated. Very.
It's kind of the way that I felt Carrie's assistant in the Sex and the City movie, who is so horribly underwritten.
Yeah.
Oh, J HUD?
Yeah. J HUD, which like, I mean, I felt like it made her look so bad. Like, it felt like she couldn't act her way out of a paper bag, but like,
that's true. Oh, that's actually, Amani, I'm glad you said that, because Nash and I, that's like one of our regular, like that's in our joke rotation. It's like quoting Louise from St. Louis lines back to each other. But you're saying that you maybe thought that it just wasn't a well-written character, because she doesn't do well in that movie, but I don't know that it's her fault per se.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I think it's totally just side thought, look, color. Moving on.
Yeah, but you're right. You're right. Fair. I agree. And because like we diversified the world, but it's these women who are there to serve Miranda and support her. And I'm literally her teacher, like Naya's character, who, if you did watch the documentary, that was who the relationship was supposed to be with. But then Miranda got her hands in it. What?
That would have made so much more sense.
It would have made so much more sense because they're both fluctuating in their marriages and whatever. But they keep getting their hands in it. Like SJP, Cynthia Nixon, like she decided, well, it would make more sense. Well, it's like, well, that's what you did in your life. This isn't your character. But between her and then you were right, LTW is just there to make sure Charlotte felt good and supported. And it was like, Black women have the same experiences parenting too, on the East Side or wherever they are.
The Upper East Side of like this. It's true. With my, shiny turban. That looked really cute, but still.
Like, that white savior situation, it's just like, it reminds me of when Miranda first had her baby, and she had like the neighbor
Kendall.
Oh, yes.
who like saw her in the elevator, and she was like, I'm Kendall, this is my daughter Tamika, have a nice day.
Oh, snap. That's an interesting, like, connect the dots situation that you just did right now. Yes. Kendall,
Good
the next door
throwback.
neighbor who gives her the vibrating toy.
Uh-huh.
Yes, the vibrating chair. That's so true though, because that's one of the few, her and Blair Underwood were one of the few at that, man, he didn't come in until season 6.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so frustrating, especially for somebody who loves to write characters. It's very frustrating because I just felt like they were making such a big effort this go around that we were gonna change it, and we were gonna give these characters, these people of color, their own Sex in the City, which almost I felt maybe the best thing this show could have actually have done is made a new Sex in the City about people of color, and then that could have spun off. Versus, no, it became saving the white people from feeling atrociously upset about them living in this new world. And so we felt bad that we didn't have enough people of color. So we're going to give everybody their own person of color. And they're not going to actually have real conversations. And case in point, in the season finale, when Naya, she gets one scene, that's it. They gave at least a turban to LTW, and they gave her 2 scenes that were pep cheerleading. And we're not even going to talk about Seema, because I think what they've done with Seema is just really, they've made her the next Samantha without actually giving her the wit to be Samantha.
I
And
was
then
thinking the same thing.
Mhm.
Like,
yeah,
Samantha's been gone. Maybe we miss her. We need a new friend in the group.
yes,
It was so unequal.
I have in my notes that I don't love that Seema is only seen in that context in the finale. In a hotel room with a guy, which I'm glad she like hooked up, that's great. But I'm kind of like, that's all we get. That's her,
Mhm.
yeah,
that's her final moment in the show. And then saying, like, Carrie, I think I like him. I was like, what? I don't
yeah.
know.
And another educational person of color, like, I'm going to take you to the store to teach you and my family about Diwali. And then I'm going to be the one who tells you that you weren't really nice whenever you said this thing. Like, every single person of color, queer person, is there to educate them. Charlotte's daughter, or who is
Rob,
now a
yeah.
non-binary person, is there to, well, now Charlotte understands and empathizes with non-binary and trans people. Like, it shouldn't have to happen to you. You shouldn't have to have these people in your life to empathize and, oh, now I get it. Like, but maybe
Well,
that's the
what
real lesson. Maybe this is what's really going on in America.
did we learn anything from Che?
Che is a narcissist. That's what we learned. They are a narcissist. They said it, not us. They did.
I didn't love Che in the finale because the character was so all over the place of, don't expect a traditional relationship from me. Don't, and then it's, here, come meet my family and let's move together and everything's like hunky-dory. I'm gonna sing this weird song. That just wasn't my favorite. I don't know.
Mine either.
It wrapped up too neatly.
No, and it shouldn't have. And now we've left the whole Steve situation completely in the dark. I guess I guess she dyed her hair red. They got divorced. I don't know. The Louisa and Brady thing is never handled. I mean, I take it Brady's cool with everything, obviously, but I'm like, okay, so we just kind of dumped that out the window. Okay. And then this just needs to be mentioned because it bothered me so much. Miranda's kind of a bitch at the club to Abuela and the mom. What's going on? What's going on? I was like, girl, just shut up and watch the song. Like, don't worry about it. Was that just me? Because she
also was kind of a
like,
bitch whenever she was telling Carrie, like, what? You believe in the afterlife? Like, God, her husband just died. Like,
like,
everybody doesn't have to believe in the same stuff as you do.
No.
But that's the theme, I guess.
Yeah, that was tricky.
Let's get into Miranda real quick because I think
Yeah.
she has been the topic of contention for so many people on this show. And I'm not gonna lie, I wanted to give the character the benefit of the doubt and say maybe it really is their lesbian awakening. But honestly, after I have rewatched this and listening to the documentary, they make Miranda look like a crazy person. And I know that that wasn't in their intention. I really genuinely believe they thought what they were doing as a storyteller was something, because obviously in the season finale, it's revealed that this whole season has basically been over the course of 1 year. So it's taken a full year. But they did so many time jumps that it did not feel when Miranda was making these big leaps earned. So especially when she shows up and all of a sudden, which that red hair was clearly a wig, she shows up and she's got this face, and her face is I was like, you guys have taken her off to the nunnery. Because I'd like to add, if you go back to that LA episode, Miranda hates LA. She despises LA.
That's a good point. She does. You're so right.
She hates it. Of all of them, she's the one that from the get-go hated it and still kind of hated it when she left. And for some reason now, it's very hard for me to believe that somebody would just, I guess it's love. That's what they keep telling us, but I didn't feel like I saw real love. What I saw was
infatuation, whirlwind romance. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. I mean, how did you all feel?
I thought it was very strange and very so not like the Miranda we know. She was just such a mess from the very beginning.
Yeah.
When did she become this clumsy, bumbling idiot? When did that happen?
And in what world would Miranda ever turn down an internship, something to further her education, a really tough one to get to follow? She would never do that. I didn't buy that at all. I didn't buy it at all.
Yeah.
But she justifies everything with but can't I do something different? But why can't I do this different thing with my life? Which I'm like, well, we can if and anything, and that can't keep being the reason why. Well, it's well, maybe I want to make a different choice. That works for some things, but you're this well thought out, meticulated person. We spent a decade building that up, who she is, to just really knock it all down. It was weird. And you're right, there is kind of a level of just whoa, you're very hyped up about Che, this person, which is not very Miranda-like at all.
At all.
No.
That's a tricky character. I'm not in love with what they did with her. I did appreciate, one of the few people who enjoyed the alcoholic story, the light, I'm going to deal with it storyline or whatever. But I wish we would have kept up with it a little bit, because you get to the finale and Che immediately has to take 3 or 4 shots to sing the song and all this stuff. And I'm well, are we really dealing with that dynamic? I would have just liked to see maybe Miranda go to a meeting. She's a really practical person, just something else to just tie that up, because that just was a plot hole thrown away. It's over. I never drinks again. I'm glad there's coffee here. And we're
and it seemed there's coffee here. And it seems like it was already she's going to a bar, a loud ass bar, and she just so easily pours a nice bottle of water, and it's how long has this been that just seems a little premature, unless she's just that well adjusted to where when she let go she was fine, but we all know that's not true.
Right, that's not how it works. But then again, she started off the season suddenly becoming this total clueless idiot, and it's Miranda, what happened?
Yeah,
she's to me she's acting as if she's a child going to college for the very first time,
right?
And maybe that's the point, and I'm supposed to understand that this, I guess, and here's the problem, and this is one of the real problem. As somebody who it took them a while until their early 20s to really come out gay, it sucks being repressed. It really does. And when you're repressed for a very long time in your life, and you know knowingly that you're something different, you don't, just when you decide to be who you are, you don't act like a crazy person and just change everything about yourself. You are still a human being. And this character felt that over the course of their 54 years from this show, at least if I were to not think of Sex and the City, if I were to just have watched And Just Like That, the character that I was watching felt like they've been repressed their entire life, not just sexually, but literally like they hated the food they've eaten, they hated the man they married, they hated their child, they hated everything. Like this person is acting like for some reason a pandemic changed them, and they're all of a sudden, I can't be repressed. And I'm sorry, but you can't deny And Just Like That, the history of Sex and the City, because these are these characters. It's not like they are in a multiverse. It's not the multiverse of Carrie Bradshaw. It is,
It is now.
Yeah, right. But I say that because it felt like the character that we saw in Sex and the City. I guess I'm supposed to look back and say she's been repressed the whole entire time, because there are moments and triumphs in Miranda's life in that show that you clearly see she's not just a repressed person. She stands up for what she believes in, who she is, and she makes choices that changed her to be a human being. And now I come into this show and it felt very odd and hard, because I was like, none of this had told me that this character and I know that they're dicey. They're not saying she's a lesbian. I know that that's not the point. I guess that she's supposed to be in this non-binary relationship. She's pansexual and she's just super attracted to Che. But once again, I never really saw them go on dates. The one date that they go on where they eat at a diner, in the earlier episode, there's two young people that come up and are like, "Oh my God, you slept with my friend," and you saw it just
Yeah, and that's good. And all of a sudden, Che's just in love with her, which doesn't make. I'm like, when did this happen? It just.
And it seems so unlike Miranda, because she's usually so calculated.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that being repressed can, I'm free now to own my mistakes and, not have to think so hard about everything. But it still just didn't feel like her. And especially because of, in the previous series, how like disappointed she would be and judgmental she would be with Carrie, like when she cheated on Aiden. And it's like her moral code totally changed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. She did give her a lot of shit when she cheated on Aiden. Really, it was just, that's a good point. Good callback.
Ooh.
Nash.
Oh, I was just going to say, I did like that they did do kind of like a little juxtaposition of in this finale with the other finale, whenever Carrie's like, well, what are you going to do in LA? Just sit in the audience and laugh. It's like, what are you going to do in Paris? Just eat croissant?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, damn, that's so true.
What are you going to do? Where they all just kind of judge and pick at each other's lives. So I like that that's still there, that they're still like judgy bitches of each other's lives.
No, they are. And honestly, there were some, to me, the They Mitzvah was really like probably my favorite part of the finale personally, because you did see all three of, like, Charlotte's like, whoa, y'all are in love? I haven't heard about this. You're going to LA? And Carrie, of course, being like, I need you both to come with me to Paris. And then rewatching that, I was like, okay, at least by the end of that scene, she realizes I can't rely on the two of you to hold my hand through all this, because it's true. Because part of me is like, you can't just assume that they're going to go to Paris with you on the year anniversary. Like, I just kind of thought that was a little, like, I understood what she was trying to do, but I was like, you're a grown woman. You need to kind of like do this by yourself. And she does. And I'm glad that she gets to that point by the end. But I think in the They Mitzvah, all three of them kind of had those moments of judgment, just like Nash said, but then kind of coming back on it and being like, okay, let me understand where you're coming from. So that's true. The friendship between the three of them is still very much there, which I do at least like seeing that part of it. That's at least one callback to the old show.
Mm-hmm. Definitely another callback that I think that they did, and we can kind of switch gears. We can bring back Miranda and Che a little bit more if we want to, but let's switch gears to the They Mitzvah and to Charlotte, because I do think, to pick up on your point, one thing that they did in the season finale that I enjoyed is Charlotte's always been the friend when someone is going to be giddy in a happy relationship. She's just equally as giddy, and I do enjoy that. Like as Carrie goes, "Oh, you're still my girl," because that's the one thing I think Charlotte by far for me throughout the whole entire show was the most earnest character that
Same. She
felt
was my favorite. She was my
familiar
favorite.
but still changed, but didn't feel like they had a complete 180 on their personality. She, to me, there were ups and downs, and I even felt of all the people with their relationships with somebody of color, her and LTWs felt actually somewhat like they built a friendship in the world of this show. And so for that, I appreciated it. And to be quite honest, if I had a friend that was about to pay for me to go with them to Paris for 3 days, and then the other friend screwed it up, I'd say the same thing Charlotte would say, you owe me a trip to Paris.
That's true. That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, Charlotte's gonna Charlotte. Like, she was by far the most consistent.
But
And,
also,
like,
I just kept. Oh, sorry. Go.
oh no. She was just the most like, that's the Charlotte I know.
Yes, but still a little bit evolved in a good way. And I still love Harry. I just something about the two of them, even now, I think still works really well together.
Yeah.
To where it's not too far off.
Oh,
Yeah.
I believe it. I mean, after seeing his penis in the episode beforehand, I was like, I mean, there had to be more than Harry's wit. And I feel like the show, that was a subtle side to being like, he's a very well endowed man. So clearly and that was also one of the things I did enjoy. I really enjoyed a lot of the other episodes when they were giving her grief. You still blow Harry. Like, I do enjoy that there are friends that rag on each other. There is a friendship. There were moments in this season that I enjoyed. But yeah, their relationship and the they mitzvah. I also enjoyed that Harry is kind of one of those traditional guys from New York that grew up in New York, and it's like,
Traditional
look,
Jew, yeah.
yeah, traditional Jew. We can change everything, but I still want the holla to be holla.
And I get that. I get it. Like he was like, yeah, you have to have a little something for like the older, more traditional Jews. And it's, I get where he was coming from. I don't know. I would have been so pissed at Rock. I would have been so pissed. I'm like, we paid all this money and you're not gonna do like, but I'm glad that Charlotte got her moment because we saw her convert to Judaism in the original series. Nash,
I agree that I liked how they wrapped it up, and that's just the kind of stuff that I like to see on Sex and the City, a party, rainbow, like just great stuff, like hologram. I mean, the whole party aspect of it, everybody looked great. It was fun. And then I really appreciated them actually hearing Rock and being like, I don't want to do this. And I get it. We paid all this. And I love that it worked out with Charlotte getting her bat mitzvah. It was cute, or her they mitzvah. I thought that was precious. It was really cute. Maybe I don't know, it was hokey for some people, but you're right. Charlotte is still the most authentic to me. She feels like 55-year-old Charlotte, like she's just aged and is still the same person and raising kids. Like, I really appreciated it. And I loved Anthony in the episode. And you can see Anthony's relationship with Rock, and you can see how close he is with their family to just be able to go in there and like get it together, like that close. And that's something I appreciated about the series, like Aunt Carrie, the kids going over there. Like, I like that those elements, that they're still connected, like they are still friends, and then the lighter fluffy stuff. I want more of a bar mitzvah than a funeral. That's just who I am.
Same. And that funeral episode felt so long too. And remember, in the original series, the wedding episodes are some of the best ones because they go to one in like almost every single season. And it's just like the Hamptons wedding and like that's true, Nash. Like the event.
This was the worst wedding, Bobby Lee. And I've just got to say, I can't. What is his character supposed to be? Because he's 50 years old and I'm 30, 34, about to be 35. And I feel like they're trying to pretend that he's like my age or something, and that I'm very confused. The podcast still throws me off.
Yeah.
I kind of forgot that there even was a wedding in this episode. She says, like, yes, they did have two like events, but it still ends up being about Carrie more than about him because it's her wake up call that she should move on. I don't know.
That was a weird. He's just kind of. I think if they wanted to bring in like one other person of color, I just feel like that's like another forced way to do it. And let's make him like the funny Asian, and wasn't funny at all. I didn't think so. Yeah, the podcast is. I don't know. I feel like it's very like pretty and like they have the studio and producers, and it's like, look at this is how we're podcasting now. I don't.
The logic of the podcast has always floored me. There's a
Mhm.
team of people, they're expecting live callers. Like, is it a radio show? And then she never, and even in this, at the very end of the episode, it's like, okay, and thanks for listening to my first podcast. She never refers to them as episodes. They're all like just the podcast. I'm going to record. Yeah, like so old lady-ish. It's very weird. I don't know.
We obviously, yeah. Speaking of Easter eggs, let's talk about Paris.
Yeah.
Let's start. Nash, why don't you that look alone? Like let's get into it, and then this
is what takes the episode from like this could have been really good to like, ooh. I know that they had to work around editing out Chris Noth, and I apologize for anyone who is triggered and affected by that. Like I know that probably does stir something in a lot of people, and fuck that guy straight up. And I get why they edited him out, but you could feel where they edited him out. Like he clearly was supposed to have been there on the bridge, and she sees him in the dream. She's clearly supposed to see him in the dream, but I get why they didn't do it. But in Paris, she puts on this nutso dress, these crazy dish gloves. She's got his body in a freaking Judith
she
Leader
literally
bag.
took out. That means you took him out of the jar and put him in a
I was
tiny ass purse. That's
like
horrifying.
Sony Morgan style, just like has him in this clutch, this bag, which is by no means large enough to, I believe, hold his whole body, which was so weird. Like in it, and then dumping it, and like her like dumping it over the side. It's comical. It was more funny than anything, and it shouldn't have been. I really wanted to like feel something in that moment because I know they were trying to get me there, and I wanted to feel it, but I just.
Not to mention, not only were they trying, they were like, let's throw the Samantha text on top of this. I was like, oh, here we go again. We're texting Samantha again. Great.
I wish they would have just killed Samantha.
Because honestly, when she texts Samantha, I said, you just now made it seem, because when she dumps this,
all caps. Stop texting Samantha.
When she dumps the ashes into the water, all I could imagine was that a gust of wind went into her mouth, and she's like, because it didn't even look romantic or like tragically bittersweet. It just looked like somebody dropped a bunch of ashes, and it looked real. Which if somebody was really doing that, it's not usually going to look very cinematic. The dust looked like the way it did in real life. It just looked like a puff of smoke. It didn't like fall in a way that made it feel
sexy
or just also stylized. And I think that's the problem with the show. This show was always stylized. And even when they did the dream sequence where they shot that, and they all of a sudden they're doing this camera switch, and now she's in widescreen, so that we know that we're in a dream sequence, and everything is extra stylized, which I thought in that moment, I will give this to SJP. I think Michael Patrick King made the wrong choice cutting the hat, as they stated in the documentary. And I'll tell you why. Because in that moment, that you want to see as a filmmaker imagery. And that shot looked flat. She's just sitting there, and it's just widescreen bars. If she had the hat, it would have been a dynamic image. It would have been something that actually would have stood out, because it would have said, we're not in reality. But she looks like her hair's so flat because they didn't design her hair. So her hair is just what looks like she'd been wearing a hat. So her hair's flat. And then she all of a sudden cuts to the same shot that she's at the wedding. And then we hear, as we've talked about what's that Todd Rundgren song that
Hello, it's
keeps
me.
haunt?
Oh, it's
Hello,
me.
it's me again. We've heard every version of that. I feel like now you were gonna say
No, I
something.
was going to ask Brandon a question. Like, from a filmmaker's perspective, how could you, what could they have done to make that whole scene at the end less silly? Because, like, I don't know what it was. If it was that it was so wide and you see her shaking in the ashes and seeing all of it, something about it was just
Really
like really like, this is jarring and weird. And you're right, the feeling was off. Should it have been black and white? Should it have been shorter? Should we have just been zoomed in on the bag? Like, what would you have, as a filmmaker, have done to like actually add some seriousness to it? Like, is it the outfit? Like, what?
The
pink and
dress.
orange.
I think the dress. All I could think about when she walks out onto the bridge in that dress is, who in Paris is walking around like that?
That's what I was
Who?
thinking too. I was like,
Who?
nobody
I've
dresses
been to
like that over
Paris.
there.
I mean, unless it's the Haute Couture Fashion Week, which
They're casual as fuck.
they had a recent like fashion week there, and if it's Haute Couture, then maybe yes, they'll walk around. But this looked like somebody who just walked out of their hotel in this dress, and it made me laugh. I laughed when I saw it in my head, and the gloves and everything. But if I were to be quite honest, I think the one thing that they could have done that would have helped it was the lighting. It was too bright. For a moment that's supposed to be serious, I would have loved some contrast. I think the action, you can't, I mean, at some point it's just somebody dumping ashes. So all you can do is, do the action and hope that it's going to look the best. Everything else is going to be the cinema. And I think the lighting, had we taken some of those bright lights down, and I'm not even talking the lampposts, I'm talking about all the lights that they clearly were shooting all around that set. They must have had a bunch of Fresnels and big canned lights so that they can create that TV look. And I think that made it just feel false. So if I had some like shadows and some moments that maybe if she was more covered in shadow, and then when she steps out, as the episode's called Seeing the Light, she stepped into light and then texted Sam, I would have maybe seen the cinema and that language being more converse. But instead, everything's just so flat. It's really just a medium shot, a wide shot. They don't do any close-ups. I thought maybe if they could have done a really cool close-up in slow motion as we see the ashes fall out, that would have given me something. Maybe see that instead of just a wide shot of her dumping, see the ashes falling and then see the ashes hitting the water, and then cut to her after the dust is settled and see her walk into light. To me, that's how I would have choreographed it if I were directing it, which, to be quite honest, it's not to be like, oh, I think I'm a great director. I think the thing that the series suffers the most is the direction. And I do think the direction is all over the place. What about you, Amani? How did you feel about that whole dumping the ashes sequence?
Yeah, I agree with you about the slow-mo. Like, I so much desired to just like see like the real end of an era and the beginning of a new one. Also, it just felt really what's the word? Clunky.
Mm.
Like it felt kind of irreverent.
Yeah, it did, because I felt, I mean, and this is something that I noticed in the documentary, and maybe this is the real issue with the show. I don't think the show had that much money. I think the show had a lot of favors that they called in, and technology today allows us to make things look better than they may actually cost. And when I saw that Paris crew, it's interesting because from the way the documentary communicates it, it seems like they shot the Paris ending before they even shot some of the other scenes that happened earlier in the show. So they shot the whole show probably like a film where they're shooting different episodes out of order versus shooting it episodically. And I think it's because of budget. I don't think HBO gave them potentially the biggest budget because HBO might have not felt is this gonna get us the subscribers that we want? And I think that you can see it in that Paris. It felt like a skeleton crew. It felt like there probably were only like 20 people on set there at most, and that some of those people were probably producers and a PA. And so that's kind of why it felt like they didn't really get to stylize it, because it's not like they were taking the whole, when they shot in Paris in season 6, I think, they obviously had to shoot like a whole, like at least a month or two in Paris, because they were doing multiple episodes. So they had to find a whole Paris crew and make it much bigger. For this one, it was what I think on screen for a matter of 2 to 3 minutes at most, this whole sequence. So they probably shot it very low key, and they probably didn't have the biggest budget. They probably spent a lot of the money on housing them and flying them. So I think that that's where their budget went. And I think that that's the one thing I noticed in the show a lot of the time outside of the creative is just technically, I feel they were trying to stretch their budget as much as they could. And were asking, I think the costumes, they probably had a decent budget on the wardrobe, but I'm pretty sure they also were going and asking. As they were showing, they went to different vintage places, and I wonder if they were always paying for them, or if they were asking to give them recognition if they put their outfits in their show. So it's just interesting. I don't mean to jump too much into the budget side, but I think this is a show where I could see the budget wasn't effectively used correctly the whole entire time.
One thing I want to get y'all's thoughts on too, because I'm just thinking about this. I really paid more attention this time to the scene with John's brother, where he's like, "Where's Big?" or "Where's John? Where's," and her dumbass, "He's dead." He's like, "Well, yeah, duh," but like, where is he? I'm not sure that Paris was the best place. Even the dream didn't make any sense. When we think about Paris, what do we think about? Well, he left her once to go to Paris and met Natasha. That's not the greatest memory. And then 2, she's there with Petrovsky. That was her and Petrovsky's thing. He just happened to show up to get her, which, yeah, it's romantic, whatever. That is not their place. Mr. Big is New York. He is New York. Fucking Connecticut would have made a little more sense. So Paris made absolutely no sense to me. Dream or not, I was like, no, New York in the Hudson River, hell, just keep him in the damn, it made no sense to me rewatching it that Paris would have been where you spread Big's ashes. Right. Did anyone else feel that way?
That does make sense, because yeah, it was a very stressful experience that she had in
Yes. Paris. It wasn't a good one. She got the hell out of there after a little bit. Nash, do you?
Oh, I 100% agree, because I'm one of the people who's bothered that the finale took place, so much of it in Paris, because you can't go and do all this stuff like, well, New York is one of the other characters. It's the 5th woman. It's the 5th character and star of the show. And they ended the series in Paris and made such a big deal about it. And then to do the same thing again, like the last moment in Paris, like, are you freaking kidding me? The show is about New York. It is New York, and New York is beautiful right now. It's so awesome. Like, you don't need to leave. And you're right, the crew in Paris, it was weird. Like, it wasn't worth doing all of that.
I don't think so either.
They could have gone, honestly, it would have made more sense to do like that library, because you remember they had their book thing, something there was donated something to just anything else, or to have been accepted like, wow, this man who all I wanted was to be a family with, his family's asking me to be with them like eternally at this plot, like, and Carrie wouldn't accept that. There was just a lot of it I did not love. I just don't love that.
No, and all I can think is that, today when I was watching it, I was like, man, when his family finds out what she did, they're going to be real pissed. That's
you can split ashes too. Like, that's also a thing. And a lot of people do that. And it doesn't seem like that was really on the table. It's just, no, Paris is our place. I'm throwing him in this bag. Like, God.
Well, not only am I going to put it in this small ass Eiffel Tower bag, but I'm going to transfer them from there to that. Like,
even though she hated Judith Lieber, she did not like the first Judith Lieber bag you bought her in the other season. The
damn
bag,
duck.
whatever.
The duck.
Yeah, the duck.
That's what they should have used. They should have used the duck.
That would have been funny. They should have put him in the duck.
But you know, maybe, I mean, this is giving the writers the benefit of the doubt, but it's probably, I mean, this is just an assumption, but I have a feeling because when Carrie dumps the ashes, it's not that much. Maybe they're trying to suggest that she gave some of the ashes, as you were saying, to the family, because I mean, when you get a bag of ashes, it's a pretty like hefty bag.
That amount of ashes that you had, like that was like a small
Right?
dog. I'm not kidding. I'm sorry, that's bleak, but like
When they got
maybe you're right,
delivered, it
maybe
was a
that's
pretty sizable box.
Right.
And then like
Which is-
is in the plot. I don't know.
Yeah. And then the fact that she texted Samantha right after, I was like, why would you do that now?
I know.
Why would you do that right now? Here, let me see what my friend's doing.
And then
I don't talk to
why?
anymore who doesn't like
would
me.
take a
and
minute.
Yeah, like why? I mean, look, and Brandon, I'm gonna put you on blast just a little bit, but work with me. You were one of the people who thought she might come back for the end. We all knew that wasn't going to happen. It was a really good idea, but I don't think any amount of money in the world would change Kim Cattrall's mind. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. I feel like we should go there because Samantha's in the damn show. They text her so much, but it's like, it's kind of like she's stuck. She's a woman of her word. So if she says, I'm not doing this, I'm done with it, because she knows she has the talent to where she doesn't have to, she's not going to come back. And there's no need for her to come back. And I think that when a friend, and it happens a lot in life, unfortunately, friendships just fade out, they die for whatever reason. And I didn't buy that they cared that much.
Right.
I just never bought it. Anytime you saw her texting her, I just didn't buy it. So I think I'm with Nash. I think they should have just killed her off or been like, I moved and that's it. You're not going to hear from me. They should have mentioned her one time and that was it. And I think that, yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. No, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm with Brandon because I had heard this theory. Like I had heard that you thought that she was going to maybe come back.
Yeah.
When I saw that she was going to Europe or going to Paris, I'm like, you're right. Oh my God, they really are about to do this for us. So we go all the way there so she can send a text message. That's a little flat. Because you're right. Like it really could have. Like they could have set it up for like, this bitch is about to be around the corner, and she wasn't.
I know. And I honestly, if they do a second season, we'll get into that because I think we're about to wrap up this season 9, but they do a second season, they'd either need to let that ship sail away and they don't need to talk about her anymore, or they need to give her an ungodly amount of money to get her to come back for one episode to get all 4 of them sitting at a table again. Because the one thing that I got annoyed with after a while, and I kind of liked it at first, I liked when they had Anthony sitting in the Samantha spot, then they had Seema sitting in the spot, and they've had Seema sitting there for a few times, but they didn't know what to do with her. So then they just kind of pushed her and put her in a bedroom with a guy smoking cigarettes. I felt like they just need to figure it out, because this wishy-washy. I watched SJP on Andy Cohen on Watch What Happens, and her explanation is she thought that Michael Patrick King perfectly like sewed Samantha throughout the whole season. I was like, you put her in text messages. There's no sewing with text messages. It's literally someone flicking a screen with their phone and we're reading. That's not interesting, and it's not captivating. They should have just. I have always agreed with Audie from the get-go. Maybe they didn't need to kill her off, but Audie has said this before. Friendships do change, and if somebody moves away, it doesn't have to be the end of a friendship, but it can be a changing of the friendship. And so if they couldn't get her back, why did it have to be anything tragic? Why could it not just be she went to London because she has an amazing job? We don't talk to her as much as we do, but once in a while we catch up. There you go. That's it. She could have still done the same flower thing from when Big died, and
Yeah.
still not have this like, oh, we're mad about each other. Because that is when Audie, you have been saying this throughout the whole, all 5 episodes, that has, I think, irked you the most, and maybe I'm wrong, but it does feel like they're writing their feelings into keeping Samantha
Oh
around
God, yeah.
by making it feel like they're really actually hurt by the fact that she didn't come back. Because if they weren't hurt by it, they could have just, there's logical ways to just not have her around without there being anything tragic, and still being able to still tell the same story if that's what they wanted, because it
Yeah.
didn't add value to it at all.
And look, we all know that Samantha made far more money than Carrie and didn't need her. She was her publicist as a favor. As a favor. That is it. She even says in one episode, like, you can't like, or no, Carrie says, I can't afford you. She's like, I'll just do it for like a dinner and a drink. Like, yeah, no, of course she can't. So the fact that she's like, she used me as an ATM, I'm like, no, you're not making that much money from the podcast.
I think they wasted the text message, that device. They could have used that to keep Stanford more connected versus like he moved away and just never talks to Carrie again. Now that wouldn't happen. That would never happen. Stanford moving to Tokyo and not like, here's me and Snapchat and like, and edit and do some like Photoshop pictures and things. And just to honor Willie Garson, like to do some like really cool stuff with that and him say some encouraging things. Like it could have been a cool plot device and we would have heard it in his voice. But instead they went petty and did it with Samantha, and it just wasn't as effective because because Stanford is still living in the universe of Sex and the City, like,
Yeah.
and now he's just gone and he's not talking to her, like,
which was bizarre
So
because like
right.
I hated how they got rid of Stanny. Like it
Mhm.
was just like poof, bye.
He deserved better, didn't he?
Yes.
He deserved much better.
But I agree 100% with you, both Nash and Amani, and all three of you, because we're all saying the same language here. But Nash, that is a really brilliant point. They literally could have done the same thing they did with Stanford to Samantha and just swapped it, but they didn't. And I think it speaks volumes to the type of temperament that they creatively put into the show. They almost overthought too many things, but then they didn't overthink certain things that could have actually added value. And I think this is, for me, the running thing that has been frustrating for the show is the writing. I think the writing is just
It's
all over
bad.
the place.
It's a lot of different hands in it for sure. Because they could have done like, oh, and she could have just in a half, like little half thing. Oh, Stanford sending me his daily coffee pick or whatever the hell it is, to where there's still some connection there with Stanford.
I followed him on Instagram. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Right?
And Brandon, you just said a mouthful, because it's like they put all their thought into the costumes, which we all know that was a little bit of a failure, and the fact that they needed to correct themselves for 10 years ago. That's where they put their time and energy in, because it showed, not in a good way, where you're exactly right. They didn't put enough thought in it. Like Stanford should have been, Stanford deserved better, far better. And I thought Anthony was kind of in it too much. But I agree with you, Nash. I did enjoy his relationship with Rock a lot, and I like that him and Charlotte are still so close, but there was a little too much air to like, just kind of nah. And I've never really liked them putting him and Stanford together. I never liked that. So I was kind of hoping that wouldn't be a thing, but you know.
What were you gonna say, Amani?
Oh, just what you were saying about the writing. There was this air throughout the entire series that it was like really annoying to do. Like there was just like this like underlying, like you could just feel like, why am I doing this again? Which is why I think there will not be a second season.
That is a really good, elaborate, please. Like, can you think of one particular scene where it felt that way? Because that's so interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it had to do with Cynthia Nixon, especially with her being in school. And it's like, it was so awkward, and it seemed like it's like the characters knew that what was happening didn't make a lot of sense.
Okay.
Like,
Okay. So you could
but it's
feel that
happening.
energy from them. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like
That's fair.
except for, well, even
Charlotte.
with Charlotte to an extent.
Okay.
Like it just seemed like those three actresses are not, like, their relationship has changed. It makes sense. But like it's not like woo reunion. It's like
We're not
okay.
getting work anywhere else, so we're gonna go ahead and do this.
Right?
I mean, SJP is right now on a kick of revitalizing things of the past, this show and Hocus Pocus 2. So right now and I honestly think SJP is a big player in Hollywood, which is the whole reason probably why the show has been able to move onward and continue, is because the person has connections and is using those connections to get these projects going.
I told Nash that she is the theater major that gets all the leads and that all the professors just love. They all just love her. They love her, and she gets all the roles, and it doesn't matter if her audition's like only okay. They're like, well, she's gonna do it anyway. Like, we all know an SJP. All of us do.
Oh yeah. And they're annoying.
They're very annoying. I mean, they're like the annoying theater girl who's just like, ugh. But yeah, and you know, the thing about her though is that she's actually really talented when she plays against her type. You know, we've seen her do it in The Family Stone, First Wives Club. She's freaking hysterical. And so she really does have talent, but she's so married to this damn role that she's can't quite let it go. And same with Cynthia Nixon right now is in The Gilded Age. She's phenomenal. I have never seen her do a role like this before, and you can see her training. I'm like, girl, you are so talented.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, you should be doing more stuff like this and not revisiting a character that, kind of like what you said, Amani, it's a little bit forced from all of them.
Or if you're gonna do the show and you're gonna put people in color, then get rid of the writers and the producers that have been writing this gosh damn show since the fucking beginning. I think
get rid of Michael Patrick, or bring Darren Star back. Darren Star knows what's up. Like,
he's making too much money with Emily in Paris right now, so you know.
It's fine.
But I think if they had just gotten if they found somebody who was like a real Che personality, because I don't know if I've ever met anybody that's actually like Che. Che was like,
are you serious? I'm just kidding. I know.
Che was like, a writer wanted to make sure they checked off every queer character box that it felt so artificial. And I was like, I'm pretty sure there are non-binary queer comedians out there. And if you actually got that person to come write their experience in your show, or got more people, and instead of having Michael Patrick King have creative control, just have production control, making sure the budgets stay in line, I feel the show would actually have life if it was given to new hands. Because, you know, when this show was originally written, it's not like Darren Star and Michael Patrick King didn't take this idea from somebody else. They took it from Candace Bushnell, who had an idea and made a book out of it. And then that book gave them inspiration. So they were the new hands. I think the new hands, if the show is supposed to go on for a second season, it needs desperately new people to come in.
So while we're real quick, you forgot Irish and Mexican. Those are the other list for Che.
Well, I do want to say two things before we wrap up this episode, because we were talking about Rock, and I loved what everybody said. I actually think Rock, I know they were kind of annoying with their they mitzvah, but I think Rock reminds me of what I meet with kids that are Gen Z these days. They want no labels, and I like their little monologue and saying, I don't want to be this, I don't want to be that. Maybe it is frustrating, but I do feel like that is a nod to the Gen Z kids that are today. They just want to exist without any label. So I at least, I think that was a note that I enjoyed. And then the only other thing I wanted to ask is, do you all think Lily had a bat mitzvah? Because they made a whole thing about Rock having one, but did Lily ever have one? Or did Lily just...
Oh,
I know it's really good.
Oh, I assume yes. I assume
I think
yes.
so
It was
too.
And it
I
was
think
just
so
like
too.
picture perfect and everything. Because Lily is Charlotte made over 100%. Same temperament. It's clearly a nature, nurture, whatever it is. Like she is Charlotte made over. And so I believe 100% had the perfect bat mitzvah, knew all the stuff. And yeah, 100% that happened. And it was flawless. And that was what Charlotte was hoping for again.
Probably
And
wore an Oscar
I
De La
enjoyed
Renta
Brock's
dress.
character. Oh, I'm sorry.
Probably wore an Oscar De La Renta dress.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Although
Yeah.
part of me wonders if they had, told us more about it, if it was like if they threw it in like Charlotte and Harry's wedding where everything went wrong, but it was still perfect.
Yeah. Love that episode.
Uh,
Love that episode so much.
it's one of my favorites.
I would like to hear first from our guests if we think that this, if we think we want to see this show go on. And if so, what do we want to see? Or maybe we don't want to. I don't know. So I'd love to hear from, I don't know. Amani, why don't you start?
I do not want to see it go on. I think, and the ending made it feel like it wasn't going on because it didn't really leave us with anything like next season-y. So no, I think we're good.
I love that.
That's perfect. Yeah.
I think so too. Nash?
I don't know how or why. I like most of America started out with the show hating it, like what the fuck, what are we doing here? And then I'm so into it. They can do this show till the wheels fall off, and I'm still gonna tune in. Do I need it? No. Do I want them to do it? No. Do I think they're gonna do it? Yes. Am I gonna watch it? Yes. If they do, I hope that they take, because there's been so much feedback in the Sex and the City and Just Like That universe, the Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere online, everybody is talking about this show and what could be different. And I hope that they can hear that feedback and really make the adjustments, really show people of color in New York under that lens, under the kind of original Sex in the City, like cool, fashionable lens. If we are going to do a second season, like I want it to be better than this. I don't want to just be like hate watching it and then getting to a point where I do like it. Where I want it to be good, and maybe there's potential for it. I'm on the fence about it. I could go either way, honestly.
I am on the fence right there with you. I 100% agree with Money. I don't have to see it go on. I really don't have to see it go on, but I'm on the fence because I have found that even through this show, I enjoyed it. I very much enjoyed the ride that was the ridiculousness of this. And I think for at least the few weeks, it did inspire me and Audie to make this beginning journey of a perspectives podcast, and I for that will be thankful for this show for inspiring, and I'm super even more thankful to share this episode with you two. So for that, you and Amani and Nash and Audie, I guess that to me is why I want to see it go on, because there's something there in the water that I think I just want to see Sex in the City end on a high note. I want to see them give us one last knock it out of the ballpark, because what And Just Like That felt like a remnants of Sex in the City 2, the movie, which was probably by far their lowest point of all, and they're trying to climb out of the drudges. And I think even though the story doesn't really work as a whole this first season, I can see that they care. I know that they care. It's like they're basically in Miranda at the beginning of the season. She cares too much and she says all the wrong things. That was literally their thesis this entire season. Whether they intentionally knew it or unintentionally did it, they cared too much, and it almost comes off too much. What I would hope for is not another season of And Just Like That. Give us Sex and the City 3, the movie. Put it on HBO Max. Wrap it up with a bow. and finish the show and be done with it. Give us the third film and get yourself where you feel that you can let go of these characters, because right now it feels like you all can't let go of them when we all moved on.
Yeah.
And I'm watching your therapy happen in front of me.
I'm with Amani, and I feel like I enjoy it I would like it better if it was just kind of a mini series situation. And it's true, they didn't leave any kind of cliffhangers. So I don't need any more. I really don't. And if they do bring back a season 2, I think I'll wait until they all come out and then I'll just binge it. I don't think I would do the weekly viewing of it. Because I found myself like being more annoyed when I was watching it, and I don't find hate watching as fun as I used to. I used to I used to like it a lot more. I can't do it anymore because I know there's so much good content out there that I'm just like, well, no, I don't want to. I don't want to watch something that I'm not really like gonna thoroughly. I don't want it to feel like a chore, and it felt like a little bit of a chore at some point. But I would be okay if it was just this was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I think that's a good way to kind of wrap it up. I mean, is there anything else anybody wants to talk about? Any last things about the season finale or the show?
I think at the end of this episode, you should play Todd Rundgren. I'm not even kidding you. Like, edit it in.
I can definitely try that, but YouTube might flag us, so we'll have to see.
I would like to say one thing that I did appreciate about this series, and even if the character was too large and confusing or whatever, it made people actually have to have conversations about non-binary people, and really got used to people hearing they them language just regularly in television, which is something I'm here for always. And
Yeah.
I thought that was awesome. Che was over the top, whatever, but I think Rock's story is really important, that it's good to see a non-binary child have a positive, uplifting, happy childhood. And that to me is beautiful and was a phenomenal part of the series, and just something that's great to see on TV. And that's just one of the things I wanted to call out about it. I'll always appreciate it for that, because it's just language that now people are getting used to. And I know that it introduced it to a lot of people who were like, oh, I don't want, and you had to just deal with it every week. And I hope that there was kind of a lot of growth from that. Me.
Totally. That's a beautiful thing. I 100% agree. I think that, once again, the reason I think we all collectively like the They Mitzvah, because it did what Sex and the City did for culture back then, which was really open the doorways to queer culture, not just for gay men, but for all types of queer people. And I think that this carries that torch. I mean, it was really cool to see a real trans rabbi in this. That person that played the trans rabbi is a real trans rabbi. And I thought the scene in the bathroom was great. I would imagine a rabbi coming out of the bathroom being like, I was just trying to use the restroom, but I'm going to give you some wisdom and let's get this show on the road. And I just felt so authentic. And I love the authenticity of that. Great point, Nash. Great point.
Yeah. Love it.
Cool. Well, then I think that is it. That is a wonderful talk. I loved having the time to hear y'all's thoughts and perspectives.
You guys were awesome. So great for our first guests.
Yeah. Nash, you wanna?
I was like, I don't have enough light in here. My computer's falling over. What is going on? My dog. So did my best.
No,
you
were awesome.
You did great.
Both of
very
you
great.
loved it.
Well, Amani, do you want to plug? Is there a website people can check out your dialect coaching, or any place that you want to put on?
Yeah. It's Amani, AMANI, Dorn, DORN, dialects @gmail.com.
I just
Awesome.
wrote that down. Thank you.
I believe my Instagram is the same.
Awesome.
It's either Amani Dorn Dialects or Amani 512. Sometimes I alternate.
Wonderful. And just a side note, Amani and I, she's actually, if you haven't seen either of you, she's an Earth Mother. So check out our film that we did together a few years ago.
Awesome.
So Amani is one of the
Nice.
actors in it.
Witchy witch.
Love it.
Yes. And what about you, Nash? You got I know you got the Nash hack, but any websites or things you want to plug, social media?
Yes. So thenashtack.com. You can always check out my podcast. I have a new episode coming soon. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. I'm on Instagram, Twitter at the Nash Attack. You can follow my Facebook page. Amani, I do have some dialect questions for you. I'm wondering if you're watching Inventing Anna and what you think of the
Just by the trailer, I was like,
Russian German
what is she
dialect that's
doing?
happening.
I have not watched it yet, but I will look out for that.
You need to see it. As someone who, I'm just curious your thoughts on that. I'm sorry to divert. But
No, it's okay.
yes. But yeah, I'm just kicking it with my podcast. Thank you guys so much for having me. I love your show, and I really appreciate you letting me join in this week.
Thank you. And
so much.
thank you. We're so excited, and we hope to have you guys both on here more in the future. So for our viewers, this will wrap up Audie and I's conversation on And Just Like That. We are going to continue the podcast. We're going to get into our brainstorming factory and figure out something exciting to talk about. But it's not just going to always be about movies or TV shows. It's also going to be maybe theater. We want to talk culture. So we'd love to have both of you all on here as well and continue that conversation with us. And thank you to all our viewers for checking in with us and listening to our thoughts and perspectives
on this train wreck of a show. But thank you.
Well, one thing that we do, Audie and I, you don't have to expand on it, but we'd love to talk about what we're watching. Do either of you have one thing you're watching that you want people to watch?
I know everybody's already watching it, but I don't care. I'm shouted out. Abbott Elementary. It is so funny. It kills me every single week. I'm loving it. And then on a serious note, for me, it's serious. I don't care. Pam and Tommy. It is really good. A really good series. I'm enjoying it.
Okay. Amani?
I cannot think of one off the top of my head. I've lately gotten really into like crafty competition shows.
Oh, very nice.
So there's one called Forged in Fire, where they like make knives and stuff. So that's pretty fun. There's also there's a pottery one, a British one, called the Great Pottery Throwdown, I believe.
Nice.
And it is delightful.
Nice. Love it.
Okay. Audie?
Check those out. I am loving The Gilded Age. Such a good period piece, but a lot of the reason why I love it is because I can name about 5 Broadway actors in it, and it makes me so happy. Kelly O'Hara, Celie Kinnan-Bolger, Christine Baranski, Carrie Coon, who is more on the Chicago theater scene, married to Tracy Letts, but is wonderful. She's a lead in this. She is the lead. So that, Deborah Monk, it just makes me super, super happy to see Tony Award-winning Broadway actors finally getting their shot on television. Fantastic show. And How I Met Your Father. It's adorable. I mean, it's just precious. And our girl's in it, Kim Cattrall. Kim Cattrall plays the older version of Hilary Duff, which makes a lot of sense. And you can tell Kim Cattrall is having a blast. And it just makes, she's the true standout. But each week the show finds its footing. And it just got renewed for season 2, and so did The Gilded Age. So yeah. Those are the 2 things I'm about right now.
Cool. The 2 things that I'm about, I just finished the first season of Peacemaker. You know me, I love comic books. I've always been into DC. Has had a weird up and down with their movies and TV shows, but I think Peacemaker is freaking fucking awesome. It's hilarious. It's ridiculous. It is confronting toxic masculinity in a way that I think a writer-director who dealt with his own toxic masculinity he's trying to convey something of some point of saying we all have to do work, even some of the characters we don't trust. And it's also just funny, and it's got a great soundtrack. So if you're looking for something action-packed, hilarious, and over the top, that show has been great. And the other one that I've been interested in right now is called The After Party. It's on Apple TV Plus. It has Tiffany Haddish.
Oh yeah,
It's
Dave
got
Franco's
Ben
in that one
Schwartz,
too.
Dave
Yeah.
Franco. It's incredible. I love it. You know, I have Apple TV is not always the best app sometimes, but they have such a cool convention. So it's a whodunit, and it takes place at an after party from a 15-year-old high school reunion, and every episode is a different film genre. So like the first episode is a romantic comedy, the second episode is a action thriller, the third is a musical, and it's all told from their different perspectives of how they see the story being played out. So you get to see their different genres. I think it's pretty cool and cinematic and interesting. It's also just really funny. And for all of us that we all graduated around the 2005 time, the show is about people that graduated in '06. So
God.
there's a bit of nostalgia that I think we could all find intriguing while watching it. So check it out. Those are the two I've been watching. But I love you all. I hope you all have an amazing weekend. And thank you so much.
Much love. Thank you, Amani. Thank you, Nash. Thank you to our viewers. And please feel free to leave us comments. And yeah, check us out on Facebook and YouTube, The Perspectives Podcast.
All righty.
Cool.
Bye.
Y'all.